Hello, good evening and welcome. I'm hoping that you are all out there because I am here. Welcome back to this autumn-winter series of Canon live shows here on the Camera World Facebook page. I'm Dave Newton. For those of you that haven't watched any of these before, you've probably not missed much. I'm a pro photographer and filmmaker, and in the next hour we are going to talk all about portraits. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure that it's working. So I have an iPad. Look at this. That shows me that I'm here. I want to know if you're all out there, because the whole point of this is that this is live. And straight away, Paul Anthony. Good evening, Paul. Hello there. Angela's watching, and Martin and Chris Thompson and Margie Macmillan Lancaster. Lots of you. Hello. Crikey, there's 22 of you online already. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Now, as I say, this is going to be all about portraits. We are in my lounge. Some of you may have seen my lounge before. Some of you might be able to hear some things going on behind. That would be my puppy dropping his marrowbone that we've given him in an attempt to keep him quiet, which is clearly failing. So there we go. You are also going to get to meet my other half. Some of you may have met my other half before, possibly, perhaps when we did one photographing Otis a while ago, where she was trainer. Today, she is going to be she's going to be model extraordinaire, and Otis may join in. And I just saw Paul Anthony says, congratulations. I'm not sure what you're congratulating me for, potentially the fact that Jess is pregnant. So, Jess doesn't like being photographed at the best of times. And she's even less keen on being photographed given that she's 8 months pregnant and we have a baby due in, what is it, are we 6 weeks away, sometime in December. So, please be kind to her. She's looking radiant, but then I'm biased and paid to say that. But it does mean that my job is really hard. I am going to have to make Jess look as amazing as I possibly can, because if I don't, she's potentially just going to thump me. Because, you know, she's pregnant and hormonal, and, you know, if I don't do a good job tonight, then it may just not go very well at all. So, now, because it's live, please ask questions. Please say hello. I will do my best to answer them. The questions are coming through on the iPad down here, so if you see me disappear to pick something up, that's what I'm doing. In fact, I'm going to put it somewhere where I might be able to see it, because that would be sensible. There we go. Look at that. And no computer. I do not want to enable dictation. Right. Okay, so let me give you a quick tour of what we've got going on here, because as we're talking about portraits, we are in my lounge. I am going to take you through a couple of different setups. We are deliberately going to keep it nice and simple, because yes, it's all very well and good creating a big studio, putting up a background and lots of lights and massive diffusers and softboxes and all of that kind of stuff. But the reality is, many of you don't have that. So there'd be precious little point in showing you all of it, although obviously you'd then probably just want to go and buy it. But that's not why we're here. We're here this evening because I want to give you as many hints and tips as I can, answer as many questions as possible, give you advice. And yes, we are going to use Flash, but I'm going to keep it simple. You can't quite see it behind me, but when I give you a tour in a moment, you'll see what we've got. And you can see the room. Okay, so this is going to be me talking to you, but I'm probably not going to do that very much. You'll see me more in wider shots. You're now going to get to see Jess, but I'm going to pick which camera you're going to see her in first. She's kind of sitting slightly on the edge of a camera down here. So here is Jess. Here we go. Here is Jess. There we go. And hopefully you can all see that. Brilliant. Let me just quickly check for any questions. Yes, Paul, that is how I got a black eye. I did call Jess hormonal. That was maybe a bad idea. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Okay, so we've got this view here. We may do some pictures of Jess sitting in this corner. We might make her move over there. You can't quite see Otis. He's just slightly out of frame down here. And then from the other angle, if I give you this view over here, hello there. You can hopefully now see Jess and indeed Otis. Here he is licking his paws. Thankfully, he's licking his paws. I was worried it was going to be something else then. So here's Otis. He may make an appearance later on. We've also got this armchair, so we're probably going to use this. You'll note that there's like a light over here in the corner. We might use that as well. There's something, I think you can sort of see something down here. This is obviously a baby changing environment over here. And there's something in front of that which we will use a little later on. That is going to be to bring in a little bit of Christmassiness, fairy lights, but something that's very cheap and simple to do and can give you some interesting, pleasant looking pictures. So that will be something else that we're going to crack on with. Right. Any other questions? No more questions right now, but Camera World are saying, hi Jess, thanks for joining us. There we go. Right. Let me put this down. Now, let's come back to talking to you. Portraits. Now, photographing family portraits. Family portraits aren't just portraits of your family. So why would you treat them any differently to portraits that you might shoot of somebody that's not your family? We're going to be using the home environment, and hopefully you're going to take some advice from this that you can use in your own home environment. It's obviously dark, so normally I'd probably talk about light coming through the windows and finding some lovely big soft light from a non-direct sun-facing window. That works really well in the day, particularly on grey days like today, where you've got diffuse light anyway. That can be really effective, but we're going to be looking at the artificial ambient light. We're also going to talk a little bit about lenses and lens choices. So I'm going to show you the difference in focal length that you get or the effects that focal length can do, and then you can make your decision as to which focal lengths are best. I will give you my thoughts as well. We'll talk lighting, so there will be some flash lighting. As I say, we'll use the ambient light that we've got in here. I've also got a reflector which we can use to try and hopefully just put a little bit of light back in onto Jess for some shadow killing. Hopefully, if we can fill with a bit of reflected light, then the shadows will be a bit softer and a bit more even, or a little bit less deep, a little bit brighter. So that's that. But as I've said already, and I'm going to say again, it's about you getting questions that you want answered. I made that ridiculously wordy, didn't I? So please do ask questions. It's far more interactive and far more enjoyable if you do. Right, so let's get started. What have I got? So in terms of a camera, I've got an EOS R5 here. You don't need, let me try and show you that better. There we go. You don't need an EOS R5. This will work with any camera. The principles are going to be the same. But I'm using the R5. And at the moment I've got 24-105 on here, but I do also have a 51.2, which is beautiful and also quite convenient in here because the lighting is quite low. And I've got a 70-200. We'll see how far we get. We'll definitely use the 51.2 afterwards or in a little while. But we're going to begin with the 24-105. Now, what I first want to show you is the effect of focal length, because people seemingly, we all know that focal length changes the shape of pictures, but people don't seem to understand how it changes the shape of pictures, particularly with regards to portraits. Now, I don't have a huge amount of space in here, so I'm not going to go too far, but we're going to start with a 24 and we're going to work our way up to 105. And just to begin with, I want you to see the difference in the shape of the face and what it does. And hopefully Jess isn't going to look at the screen when I shoot her somewhere between 24 and 70 mil. So don't look at the screen because they're going to be the less flattering focal lengths. But it's instructive to see what happens. And also it's really important to see what happens to the background. That is also key. So we're going to go to this. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to go to this one. There we go. We're going to go to this one. Right. Jess, could I get you to stand up, please? Now, we're not going to worry about the lighting to begin with. There we go. For those that didn't believe that Jess was pregnant, if she turns slightly side on... No, that's dark on dark, isn't it? There's a bump. I promise there's a bump. There's quite a large bump. We're having a girl, by the way, for anyone that was going to ask. It's not a secret. Her name's a secret. You can't find that out. Right. What we're going to do, we're not going to worry about the lighting. I'm just interested in what the background looks like and what happens to the shape of Jess's face as we change our focal length. So, if you could come this way a little bit, please. Thank you. I'm going to get that out of the way. Right, now I'm going to take my first picture and then I'm going to just go back a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to put it up on screen for you. So, let's have a little look at this. If I put this here. Okay, so first picture, there we go. And you now don't really need to see me too much, but I am going to just switch a camera over so that you can, because then you know exactly what I'm doing at any one time. I don't like there to ever be any secrets in what's going on here. It should all be entirely transparent. So we've got this picture of Jess, and this is shot at 24mm, okay? Now, you can see there's quite a lot of stuff going on in the background. Hopefully, if I put picture in picture on, brilliant, look at that. You can still see us. Wonders of technology, right? Okay, so we've got this picture of Jess, and if you look at the shape of her face, it's not doing an awful lot for the shape of Jess's face. It's kind of widening it out because it's a wide angle lens. Look at the background. You can see how much is going on in the background. There's an awful lot there. Now, I'm going to try and keep Jess's face about the same size in the frame. So I was about here. But what I'm going to do, I was at 24, I'm going to zoom to 35. Now, that means I need to step back a little bit. And hopefully I'm going to try there we go. It's not a precise science, this, but I'm now moving to 50. And then we'll go to 70. I'll take a bit more of a step back. Oh, a little bit further. And then we're going to go to 85. So I'm taking a bit more of a step back again. I'm probably almost out of frame here. You probably, hello, you probably just about still see me. Right, there we go. Don't worry about that cable running behind Jess's head. That's what makes the magic happen. And now I've gone to 105. I'm here. I'm here, right here, okay? So I'm now at 105. I'm still trying to keep Jess's face about the same in the viewfinder. That'll be about there. Brilliant. Now, as each one's come up, as that focal length has increased, hopefully what you've seen is that Jess's face has actually narrowed down to its narrow form, which is how it normally is. Just stepping away, which is how it normally is. But also, the background has changed. So the amount that we can see in the background has narrowed off. The perspective has changed. Now, I've done this trying to keep the background trying to keep Jess's face the same size in the frame, albeit the look has changed. What the lens has done, at the wide angle, it pulled it out. As we got more telephoto, it narrowed it off. And that's why people say that like 85mm is a really good focal length for portraits, because it's a very flattering focal length. It doesn't add any of that wide angle feel to it. It keeps features looking quite natural. In fact, it slightly trims them down more than, say, a 50mm would do, which is our standard natural perspective. Now, we're going to do the same thing, but this time, I'm not going to move anywhere near as far back. In fact, I'm going to probably try and stay around the same sort of space. And where we saw a difference in the background this time, you're going to see a much greater difference in the background, okay? So, I'm probably going to shoot it vertically. We are going to start with, there we go. We'll start with 24mm. And I will have to move back, but hopefully not that far. There we go. So this is now at 35. That's the next one, right? Ready for 50. And ready for 70. I've now got to come back just a little bit. There we go, and 85. And finally, 105. Now, there we go, done. Now, what you should see in these is that we've still got that, there is still the effect on Jess's face, but because I didn't move so much, it's less obvious. My distance was much the same. But look at what's happened to the background. Before, we had, that background was really wide. You could see everything that was going on, that cable running behind Jess's head. You could see everything that was on the shelf. You could see all the shutters of the windows. Now, because I've used a longer focal length lens, not only has it changed the shape of Jess's face, but it's also changed the perspective of the background. So it's narrowed that field of view of my background. And that means if you've got a cluttered space, you can then help hide it. You can get rid of it. The camera, they say, never lies, but how you frame changes the story that you tell, okay? And the lens that you choose also changes that story. So you can use a longer focal length lens. You can narrow the field of view in the background, thereby cutting out a lot of what might be termed clutter for the picture, and change the entire look of the picture. Right, now there's been quite a lot that I've said right now. Let me just see if there have been any questions. What have I missed while I've been yabbering away? Any questions? Have I missed anything? No questions, people. No questions. Okay, I must be explaining it very well. Well, you know, feel free to question as and when. I'm going to put that there, and hopefully I'll see if any questions come in. Right. So, step number one. Let me come to this camera over here. Here we go. That's now got your back. Right. So, step number one is think about your lens choice. Okay. Lens choice is really very, very important for portraits. You can shoot portraits on any focal length lens. Okay. Anything from a 14mm fisheye all the way up to an 800mm lens and a 1200mm lens if you could get your hands on one. All of them will work for portraits, okay? But you just have to think about what it's going to do to your picture. So those longer focal length lenses are going to trim people down. The wide focal lengths are going to make people look bigger than they are. It's going to distort the features. Particularly if you take a 14mm fisheye and you get in really close to someone, their face is going to bulge out and their nose is going to be massive. And that's probably not going to be very flattering. Funny, maybe, but not so good for family portraits. So we tend to find that portraits are shot somewhere between 50 and maybe 150mm focal length. That would be your generic go-to. But as I say, this rule, such as it is not really a rule. You can happily break it and use any focal length you want. Just do it knowing what's going to happen, okay? So, that is your focal length choice. Right, no questions for me. Lovely, Angela. Brilliant, thank you. People are saying that it's all super clear. There we go, no questions, brilliant. Okay, so focal length. That's focal length done. We're not going to talk any more about it. You can now take that bit of information and use it for your next portrait session. Next up, what we're going to do, we started with Jess standing here, but that doesn't make the best use of this environment. So we've got some lighting. There's this overhead light here. Now, if I stand here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this particularly clearly, but if I stand here, the light's coming from above, right? And I can see myself in a mirror. That's very convenient. And it means that I have got, here we go, shadows under my eyes, under my nose, and under my chin. And that's not really very flattering. That's kind of what happens when we go outside and we're photographing in daylight and the sun is up here, okay? Now, if the sun is up here and we get those shadows, we tend not to like them. So let's not use the same sort of lighting inside. Overhead lights like this, you have to be really careful. If I'm standing right under the light, that means I'm getting these shadows. If I actually take a little bit of a step back, because it's a diffuse light, just checking it's working, it is, good. As I move back, some light is now not falling under the hoods of my eyes and not quite so much under my nose and my chin, and it's softened it off. And all I've done is taken, I don't know, a step backwards. And I don't have as strong a light on me because I'm further away, but it's a much nicer shape to my face, to the lighting, to the shadows under my eyes, nose and chin. So when you're photographing your family at home, start thinking about light. Light is the basis of everything we do in photography, and if you're not paying attention to it, then you are not in control of what you're doing, okay? You need to think about the light that's going on. So we've got this overhead light, and we can, at the very start, make it look a little bit nicer. So we're going to begin with trying to change this light. You saw that if I moved myself slightly forwards or back, it changed the look. I'm going to show you that with pictures of Jess. So I'm going to get Jess to move a little bit further back, a little bit further forwards. And then we're going to bring in our reflector and just try and push a little bit of light back in from this overhead light. Okay, you see how simple it is. So, once more, please. I'm conscious of the fact that I'm asking Jess to stand up and sit down and stand up and sit down. There we go. Oh, there's a question. There is a question. There's a couple of questions actually. So Adam, the lighting in the room appears quite dull, yet your photos are well lit. Have I bumped the ISO? Yes, the ISO is quite high at the moment. I'm shooting at 6,400 ISO, f4 at a 50th of a second. You're obviously only seeing low res, but actually the R5 does perform quite well, provided you light it properly, i.e. provided you don't underexpose and then expect to brighten it later. Jenny Hansen says, what would you recommend to use if you had to say a Christmas type printed background? Oh, a Christmas type printed background. Well, that really depends how Christmassy you want to get. I would be thinking about colours. So I'd be thinking either something with red and green in it, probably. You could have a grey background that you put some red light on or some green light. You could have a mottledy grey background that may take up colour with, so it's a bit light and shade rather than just a uniform colour. If you were going to print a background, it depends how cheesy you want to get. I mean, you could put holly wreaths and all sorts of things on a printed background, but I'm not entirely sure I would do that. Let me think while I'm shooting and see if I can come up with a better suggestion for you. But personally for me, I quite like clean backgrounds, clean with colour, rather than having anything that's overly competing with the subject. If you've got something with too much detail, it takes the viewer's eye away from the subject and causes them to look at what's going on in the background, and that's never necessarily a good thing. Okay, so I'm going to get Jess to come towards me a little bit, and hopefully we'll see where we were before. I'll put this back up. There we go. You can have me over here. Right, so if you come towards me a little bit, towards me a little bit, towards me a little bit. Yeah, we are. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Jess knows what's going to happen, and she absolutely is trying to avoid it by not stepping as far forward as I want her to. That's the trouble, I guess, when you date a photographer, you end up picking up about light, don't you? Right, so this is, oh, you blinked. There we go. This is not going to be flattering. Jess, don't look. Okay, keep not looking. Right, what I want you all to see, I'm kind of trying to stand in the way so she can't see. What I want you to see is this shadow. You can see we've got this bright forehead. We've got shadows under the eyes, shadow under the nose, shadow under the chin. Not very flattering at all, okay? Any more questions? Keith says, what camera equipment am I using? Keith, I'm using a Canon R5 with a 24 to 105mm lens. The box on top isn't turned on at the moment. Right, so if you just, okay, so we had Jess here, okay? This is where she was. I'm just going to get her to go back just a little bit. Keep going. That'll do, and then we'll go back a little bit more in a moment. Okay, so have a look at this one. See how that light's changed dramatically on her face. Go back a little bit more. Tiny bit more. There we go, right. And suddenly, now I didn't change my exposure. The reason that it's got a little bit darker is because Jess has moved out of the direct light that's coming out of the hole just here. But also you can see that that light is so much softer on her face, right? The shadows under the eyes, the nose and the chin have really eased up. They've really kind of, they're still there. We've still got some shape, but they've definitely eased off and they're definitely a lot more flattering than they were. And the difference, as I say, as you saw, was, I don't know, 1/2 a step backwards. And this is still just with an overhead light. Right, let's now, let's grab this. This is a reflector, a Manfrotto Halo. And I'm simply, there we go, right. I'm just going to bring it in. I can hold it one-handed. Make sure that it's in. There we go. And now, look at the difference. Simply by bringing a reflector in, we've now got that lovely catch light in Jess's eyes. It's down slightly low, bringing some life to the eyes. It's also just lifted everything around the side of her face. And we've not got to posing yet, so Jess is just kind of staring straight at the camera. But simply the addition of a reflector has dramatically changed the look of the picture. There are, camera away, yeah. I've already mentioned the lens. It's an RF 24-105. Right, now, lighting. You see how that's changed so much just with this. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to make it slightly better. I'm going to get Jess just to turn ever so slightly. Because, no, the other way, because this is in my left hand. This would be awkward. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to bring this light in a bit from this side, and you can bring your shoulders back towards me just a tiny bit. There we go. So we're just going for a very standard portrait of Jess being 45 degrees. And let's bring this back in. Bring your shoulders around towards me a little bit more, a little bit more. There we go. Okay. So now we've got shape and modelling across Jess's face. Yeah, we've still got this top light, which shouldn't work at all. But combined with the reflector and just getting Jess to turn ever so slightly, it really does work to get actually not a bad portrait for something that is actually so, yeah, in terms of the lighting. As I can't think who said it, the light looks quite dull. It's quite dull and it's coming from the wrong place, but still we've managed to get not a bad picture. Okay, questions now. I keep seeing things pop up. It's just people watching. There we go, it's people watching with us. Brilliant. Nice to see so many of you online as well. Okay, so we've gone with just the reflector and looking at the overhead light. How about if we want to bring in some of the feeling of the light in this room, namely that backlight? Yeah. Now, in film terms, if you were a gaffer on a film set, you might call this a technical or a feature light, and it's something that you might use to create some separation. So I need to do a little bit of moving of stuff around and try not to drop my camera. Also good. Right, if you could come over here. What we're going to do is I'm going to take this chair and I am going to spin it around here. That'll do. There we go. Just like this. And we are going to just drag this up a little bit out of the way. This is, see, Otis is being very good sleeping there. And we're going to use this as a kind of a light, or sorry, a chair that Jess can sit in, and we can then have that light behind in the background. It's going to provide that kind of separation. It's going to provide depth in the scene with a fairly wide open aperture, or in this case, very wide open aperture. We can use depth of field to allow that background to drop away into fuzziness, but it gives us a feeling of something being there. And obviously I could play with the distance of the chair to the background, and that can therefore affect how that depth of field looks, as well as I can change the distance between me and Jess when she's sitting in the chair. She's been standing a while. In fact, I'm going to let her sit now. Go on then, you can take a pew. I am just going to bring a couple more bits out of the way to give myself a little bit more space. This footstool is entirely for Otis's toys. That's what that's there for. Right, so you may notice that I positioned the chair slightly back from where Jess is sitting as well, from where the light is above. And that means that as we were talking about the light just now, hopefully the light's not going to be too bad on Jess. Now we're going to begin with ambient light. And as we begin, we begin with our ambient light. We're then going to look at adding in some flash. Angela says, sorry, can't see the colour of the reflector. Is it gold or white? So this one, it's double-sided. And this is actually, it's a silver white on this side. So it's got some thin strips of silver through it. Excuse me. Interspersed with some white. So It's not as specular as a silver reflector is, i.e. it's not quite so harsh and hard, but it gives a bit more bounce and a bit more light than just a plain white reflector would be. This side is just a bit more white. You do get, it's a slightly silvered white, but not much. So this will be a softer light bouncing back. I'm using the silver white side though. One, because I don't want to add like gold colour to this in this already warm light room. And two, just because it makes it easier for you to see, because you can see more light bouncing back. There we go. Right. So let's start. And can you turn so your legs are across this way? There we go. There we go. That's it. Right. Now we're going to shoot. We're going to shoot horizontally now. So we'll go back to a horizontal shot, and what's going to happen is we're going to end up with a very overexposed background. So if you can turn your body that way a little bit, bring your legs, that's it, legs this way, and then you can just kind of turn your head back towards me. So you're kind of looking for frame. Just lift your head slightly. There we go. Now that background light is going to be quite bright, okay? In fact, it's very overexposed, and that's because we're just working with the light that we've got in this room. And obviously that light there is much brighter than the light that's hitting Jess, because that's quite a lot further away. Now, we're going to do something about that in a moment, but we are just going to bring in a reflector from this side, which is just going to help soften the light on Jess's face. Trying to find the light. There it is. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice Otis sitting down in the background. There we go. Right. Okay, so we've still got, we've made the light on Jess's face much nicer, but we've still got this overexposed background. Now, I absolutely love Flash. I know many people detest Flash. They think it's horrible and hard and confusing and doesn't make any sense at all. So in the next maybe 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to take all of that confusion and make it really, really simple. I think. You'll have to tell me. Okay, so we're going to use Flash. And we want this background light to look nice, to not be overexposed. We want to give the warmth in the scene, but we don't want it to be so bright that it's just taking the eye of the viewer, because we want to concentrate on the attention on Jess, obviously. And we just want that feeling of warmth in the background without it being super bright and overexposed. So what we're going to try and do is we need to change our exposure. So I'm going to close my ISO right down to begin with, and I'm going to change my ISO up until that background light is not overexposed. So you may remember I was at 6,400 ISO. I've come all the way down to 400 ISO now. I'm still at 50th of a second at f4, and we're going to take a picture. Well, just for comparison, I should put this in as well, just so that you know what's going on. There we go. Okay, so you've still got the reflector in there, and there will be no prizes for guessing that it's going to be underexposed. Look at that. It's all going to be underexposed. Now, why is it underexposed? It's underexposed because I've set the exposure for that bright light in the background. So what we need to do now is take Flash and put the flash onto Jess to balance with the light that's in the background, okay? So my camera is set to manual. I'm not changing anything. I'm simply going to grab this. This is a flash. There's a Canon Speedlight 600EX, and it is sitting inside a Lastalite EasyBox Speedlight 2. It's the Joe McNally edition, so it's got the little baffle around the front here. I've not got grid on it. It's just a nice, simple light. Now, the reason we use things like this is because it makes the light source larger. And if we make the light source larger, we make it softer. But I have to get this in fairly close to Jess. Otherwise, the further away it gets, the relatively smaller it becomes, and therefore the harder it becomes and less flattering. So I'm going to choose which side I'm going to put it from. Now, we've got choices, obviously. I can either light from this side over here, or I can light from this side over here. And Jess is sitting fairly square onto me, so it's not going to make a huge amount of difference, but I'm going to tweak her position marginally so that it does. So I'm going to put it in on this side. There we go, let's bring it down. I want to make sure that it's not so high that I lose the catch light in her eyes, because we saw that the catch light in her eyes earlier on was very nice. There we go. So let's bring this in. We've got it in about as close as I can get it without it being in frame. And I'm just going to feather it over this way a little bit. I don't want it hitting Jess full in the face. There we go. Brilliant. Right. Now, I've still not changed anything on my camera. It's still in manual. It's still at a 50th of a second at f4 at ISO 400. This is very important because I'm now going to turn the flash on. This is the flash transmitter. You'll notice this has gone green. At least I hope you can see. There we go. Let's hold it close. This has gone green. That means they're connected. Now, I'm not going to do anything in terms of flash exposure compensation. We'll save that for a little bit. But we're just going to see how this performs. So if you can turn your head that way ever so slightly for me. Yeah, there we go. And you bring your eyes back towards me. There we go. Okay. So I've now set my exposure. Please work. Oh, look. Look at that. I said please work. I knew it was going to work. I did know it was going to work. So I set my exposure for that light in the background. And I then filled the light in the foreground with flash. And, well, I don't know, does it look good? Do we like that? I'll give you some seconds to answer. Could we see where you're positioning everything? It's difficult to see in the corner of the screen. Yes, Chris, you can. Let me, you've seen what that looks like now. Let me give you this, this view, which is going to be, I'll tell you what, I'll give you this one. Here we go. Right. So let me quickly talk you around. You saw that I was here. Jess is here. And what I've done is I've taken this softbox and I've positioned it in close. That's, you know, maybe 1.5 foot away from Jess. And it's just over on her right-hand side. The light behind is obviously in the background. That's just a table lamp that's there, and as you could see from the picture, we've got that lovely warm glow, but we've balanced the light in the foreground by putting the flash onto Jess. Question I just saw, what trigger am I using, Keith? This is the Canon trigger, it's the STE3 RT, and you're saying the left side is dark. So this side of Jess's face is dark. It absolutely is, because the light is firing across. Now doing a single light portrait is possible, but challenging. I could obviously just bring this round a little bit. If I bring this round a little bit further, then what I end up with is a bit more light. In fact, let me give you the view from the other side. That's going to be this one. Here we go. Right, so if I was to bring this around here, if I bring it more around this way, I get more light falling on this side of Jess's face. At the moment, it's quite a side light. It's not quite a split light. There is some light filling. But this could just be a case of either getting Jess to turn her head a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, or bringing this light round. But I deliberately positioned that light there because I can then bring in a reflector. So I'm not going to change anything here. Let's not kneel on the camera. There we go. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this reflector that we saw before, and I'm going to put it, hopefully you can see this if I crouch down. There we go. I'm going to put it to where this light's coming. So we know that light travels in straight lines. So the light's coming out of here and coming over here. And all I'm going to do is put a reflector back on this side, which is going to take some of that light. Otis is going to get up now and come and find out what's going on, and push some light back in over here. Oh, Oats. Hello there, puppy. Right. Photobomb. That's like the ultimate cute photobomb, that is. Right, so I'll give you back this view for a moment, and then I'll show you the result, assuming Otis doesn't get in the way. No, Otis, you can't eat the candle. Right, no, he's gone back to lie down again. Go on, that's it. No, okay, he's coming to say hello to me. Right, so I'm going to hold this out. This is going to pick up some light bouncing back. I'm going to try and not get Otis's snout in there. Or indeed his bum. I shall wait a moment for him to lie down once more. There he goes, good job. Right, so this is hopefully going to pick up a bit of that light, put it back in there, and there we have it. Right. Keith, Because I'm sure it was Keith that said it was a bit dark on that side. How does that look to you? Does that look a little bit better? It's certainly lifted the shadow on that side of Jess's face, and we've got that lovely feeling of separation. We've got a nice environmental portrait. Jess is kind of sitting in the lounge, but we've got lovely warm light. You've got a nice feeling of where it is. Question from Chris. How did I decide the power setting for the flash? In short, which one do I want to give you? This one, here we go. In short, Chris, I didn't. I've got the flash set to ETTL. And that means that the camera is working out how much power it needs. Now that is going to vary based on how much light I'm putting in there. There's a lot of light on the subject that's coming from the flash. In fact, predominantly the light on Jess is coming from flash. So my flash exposure compensation has to be quite accurate, but I haven't made any changes to it. And the reason for that is because if we look at the picture, if I come back to the picture again, and I'll reappear in the corner, there we go. The picture, the subject, which is Jess, she's got this light face and then she's wearing a dark dress. And that means there's a reasonable balance between shadows, midtones and highlights. So the flash metering can do quite well. If Jess was wearing a white top, then it would likely underexpose with flash. If she was wearing, if she had much darker skin tone, if we'd been on holiday recently and she'd spent a week in the sun, she'd have darkened her skin off a lot, and undoubtedly we'd have ended up with a bit of flash overexposure because the flash or camera would have wanted the flash to give it more light. Okay, so I didn't decide the flash power, I let the camera do it, but I let the camera do it knowing what it was going to do in terms of how the ETTL was going to work. Okay, so I could change that by changing my framing. Perhaps if I was to shoot vertically, there would be more dark, and then we'd end up with a different picture. Right. Okay, Stephanie says, lovely, good. Keith, you saying good, brilliant. That means you're happy with it. And Adam's given a thumbs up. There we go. Okay, so one flash and a reflector and the light that's in the room, and we've managed to create a really nice, flattering portrait. Jess, do you think it's flattering? Is that all right? You're quite happy with it? You don't mind that being on screen, full screen for many, many people to see live? No, that's okay? I'm not getting punched yet. This is a good thing. Okay, so let's take this one step further. Let's say that I wanted to now create a bit more separation between Jess and the background. We've created separation with some colour, but we might want to create separation with a bit more light as well, because that light in the background, while lovely and warm and gives a great feeling, isn't actually putting a lot of light onto Jess. So we're not getting any kind of hair light or separation light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another light source. Now, so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to come here. There we go. Right, I'm up here now. I only do that so I know where I am. Right, so I've got another light. Okay. Now, I am going to try and figure out exactly where I can position this. It's going to be a little bit of a juggle. Let's make that a little bit narrower. I need to be careful. I don't want the stand-in frame, obviously. That wouldn't be good. And I want to make sure that it's hitting the back of Jess's head, but maybe not too much. We're not going to use a lot of light. I also want to make sure that it's not going to spill around this side of Jess's face, because if it does that and starts catching the nose, that can be really distracting. So I've got, if I can show you this, there's the trick there. Here is a honeycomb grid, okay? So on the front of the flash, here's the flash. I've got a Lastalite attachment, magnetic attachment, strobo attachment, and I'm simply going to take the honeycomb grid here that you just saw. You can kind of see what that does. You can still see through it, but it kind of narrows off the light, okay? So it moves the light into nice straight beams, but it keeps them fairly soft edge. So it's a bit like a snoot, but not as hard. So I'm going to take that, put this on here. I've also got this. This is a tungsten coloured gel. So this is going to go on the front because obviously the light from this is from the lamp down here that you can't quite see is warm light. It's a tungsten light and it's going through a slightly yellowy lampshade. So I need to try and match that. If I fire daylight, which is the light that comes out of a flash, if I fire that at Jess's head, it's not going to match with the light that's in the background. It's going to be distracting because it will be much lighter or much bluer. So we're going to put this on and I'm just going to make sure that we are indeed, there we go, getting the back of Jess's head. Now this light here is going to be group B. Okay, so let me come back to this one so that you can see where that light is. You can see we've got Jess here and it's kind of positioned behind. I've hopefully angled it far enough this way so it's going to rake across the back of Jess's hair here. It's going to basically boost the light that we got or that we're getting from that background light. Now when you're working with multiple light sources, never just turn them all on. Okay, so I had this light source turned on, but I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to do it from here. So we turn that off and I'm going to go to group B and turn it on. Now let me see if I can actually show you this. There we go, we've got enough, hopefully. Right, can you see this? There we go, you can. Look at that. Right, so let's bring the light on. So I've turned group, I can't really see this to do it myself now. Group A is turned off and I'm going to turn group B on. Now, group B, you'll notice, is set to manual. And before, I had group A in ETTL. That's going to remain in ETTL, but we're going to use group B in manual. So I'm going to guess a flash power. And we're going to take a little trial shot and see what it looks like. Because now, the exact amount of light out of this, we don't care what it is, but it's got to look right. If it's too powerful, it's going to be obvious that we've put another light source in. If it's too soft, it's not going to do anything. So we're going to have a little bit of trial and error, take a couple of pictures. I may have guessed right first time. It sometimes happens. And we're going to see how much light we're getting onto the back of Jess's head. And then we can bring our main light, our key light, back in. Okay, so a little test. Oh, okay. So let's give you that view. You can see now, in fact, if I just turn that off, let's give you a comparison. So this is with this is with no flash on. There we go, it's all dark. Now let's do it so that you get the absolute comparison. So we've got now this warm light that's kind of spilling across the back of Jess's head. Now, remember I said I don't want it hitting the nose? It's not hitting the nose, I've managed to avoid that, but it is still hitting a little bit of the side of her face. So I'm just going to angle it across a little bit more. Let's show you what I'm doing because I'm sometimes nice like that. Right, so let's angle it across a little bit more. In terms of power, it's actually not that bad. I might just lift it up a little bit as well because I don't want it spilling too heavily down onto the back of that chair. There we go. I could also bring this up and I could kind of fire it down this way, but then the light's going to hit the top of her head and that's, again, not going to mimic the sort of light that we've got going on here. We need to kind of keep the feeling of the direction of that light so that it feels believable. Okay, so in terms of the power, it's not too bad, but I am going to take it down just a little bit. So we were at a 30-second power. I'm going to take it down one stop. We'll have a little quick test. Again. Oh, that feels better, but maybe I went a tiny bit too far. So let's split the difference, and here we go. There we go. I think that's looking quite believable that it could be coming from that light behind. So now we can bring our, let me show you. There we go. So now we can bring our key light back in. I've just realized, there we go. I'm talking to a camera that you can't see me in. Look at that. So I'm going to bring our key light back in again, which was this one here. We'll put our reflector in as well over this side. And hopefully we'll have our final picture for this. And then I've got 10 minutes to show you one more thing, which is just a nice little kind of festive feeling little thing. Group A is turned back on again. Group A, if you remember, was this light here. I just did that from the transmitter. And what we're going to do now, I'll grab this. We'll put this back where it needs to be, which was somewhere around about here. There we go. Jess has already turned her head slightly towards the light. She knows that she wants to be short lit. And there we have it. Look at that. How's that look? Better. There we go. So, 2 light sources plus the light that's already in the room. We have got a nice, warm feeling picture of Jess sitting here. I've still only used a 24 to 105. We've not, nothing special in terms of lens. We do have 2 light sources, of course, 2 flash guns. But you see now how putting that light in behind, allowing it to catch the side of Jess's hair here, or if you can see me here, side of Jess's hair here, has just brought some life and light to this side of her face. The reflector that we used has pushed the light back in. It stopped the shadow being too dark down on the unlit side of her face. And having said unlit side of her face, I'm going to give you a very, very quick rundown. I keep forgetting which camera I want to talk to. There we go, that one. Right, I'm going to give you a very quick rundown. You may remember that I said I could decide which side I wanted to put the light. Did I want to put the light this side or this side? Now, there's a difference in lighting between what we call broad lighting and short lighting. And early on, right at the start, we talked about lens focal length, and if we use a wide angle lens, it makes people look big and wide and bulbous and unflattering. So we try and avoid doing that generally. We also, particularly with ladies, try and avoid what we call broad lighting. So given where Jess was sitting, if I'd put the light this side, so that I was lighting this side of her face, and I was then shooting that side of her face, that would be broad lighting. You're shooting the lit side of the face, and it makes people look wider. However, by putting the light around this side of Jess's face and shooting what is effectively the shadow side, the unlit side of her face, that's short lighting. And short lighting, a lot like using a longer focal length lens, has the effect of trimming off somebody's features. It makes them look a little bit more narrow. So short lighting is very flattering, combined with an appropriate focal length lens. And I think I was shooting at apparently about 75-ish mil on my focal length. So somewhere around that lovely portrait focal length lens, combined with the short lighting, we've got a picture that actually looks really quite nice and flattering. I hope you'll agree. What do people say? Paul's given us a thumbs up. Chris has given us a thumbs up. Good. I'm assuming that's thumbs up for the picture. Well done. Falling over. Right. So we've got 7 minutes. And the last thing I want to show you is something a little bit fun and Christmassy. I've just seen myself fall over on screen because of the delay. Whoops. It's a little bit fun and Christmassy. So I have got down here, in fact, let me see if I can, oh, you're seeing it all. There we go. So I have got another one of these Lasterlight reflectors, or at least the frame of it. And I have taken some fairy lights and I've very messily wrapped them around it. Can you see where this is going yet? Okay, now fairy lights obviously classically Christmas. Oh, someone else has given a thumbs up. Julie, brilliant, lovely. Right, so classically Christmas. Now, if I want to create a lovely, interesting Christmas kind of portrait, I can use these. We could put them in the background. We could wrap Jess up in them. She probably wouldn't like that very much. These ones are wire, so they tend to just kind of bind awkwardly. But wrapping them on this frame, I can now hold them and I can shoot through them. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I probably don't need the backlight for the moment, so I'm going to turn that one off. That was group B. And I'm actually going to turn all flash off for a second, and I'm going to get Jess to stand up. And despite the fact that we have got all of this light going on in here, Okay, you stay there. I'm just going to drag this back. There we go. Let's get this out of the way. We get a little bit more space. I need to put this down for a second because we are going to use this flash, but we're not going to use this flash just yet. Oh, Otis has appeared. Hey, Pop. How you doing? Right. So all we're going to do, we are going to use our knowledge of depth of field and we're going to use our knowledge of lighting to create something kind of fun and Christmas. Otis is moving into the chair. Look at that cheeky monkey. Honestly. Right. So I am going to zoom in on my focal length a little bit. I'm going to go to about 85-ish mil. And what I need to do is, because I know the picture that I want to create in the end, I'm going to make the first one, it's not going to look quite right because we are going to need to use some flash. So Jess, if you would, in fact, where you were standing is absolutely great. Look at that. So I have, I'm going to take this. You can all see what I'm doing, I hope. There we go. I'm just holding this up and I'm holding it up nice and close to the lens. And, I'm looking for a big kind of clump that I can shoot through. Oh, hello. Spin it round. There's got to be some somewhere. I put quite a lot of them. There we go. Okay, so it's going to be dark. Never fear. Now, interestingly, the exposure that we got set has not done badly for these fairy lights. They might be a little bit too bright, but not too desperate. I'm going to just make my shutter speed a tiny bit faster, just to darken them down a little bit more. I'm going to endeavour to find where they were. No, not a clue. Oh God, where have they got to? There, do I have them about there? Struggling to find that same hole. Where's it got to? So this is where it's, there we go, that might be it. Or if not it's not too bad a choice. Right, there we go, they look nicer. So now we've got this lovely kind of diffuse foreground of specular lights. But Jess is kind of all underexposed. So I'm going to bring this back in. Remember this was our key light from before. It's going to be our key light once more. There we go. I'll turn the flash on. We're going to leave ETTL to deal with what it's doing. Knowing that I'm framing with something that's got a reasonable amount of shadow and highlight. I've also, you'll notice, brought this in quite close. We do have a mirror behind, which means we might get a little bit of bounce back from that. So there might be just, where are you? Somewhere about there. Here we go. Okay, let me get rid of my mouse. There we go, look at that. So we fired that light through. You can see we've got a little bit of light in the background as well. I think, Keith, if you're there, you're probably going to tell me that it's too dark on the unlit side of Jess's face. It kind of is. I'm actually going to bring the light round a little bit. I'm going to bring it a little bit more forwards. There we go. There we go. Let's make sure that it's actually firing at Jess. Okay, now what we're using, as I'm sure you've all guessed, is the power of depth of field. You'll notice, or you should have noticed, that I'm holding this structure of light quite close in front of the lens. That's why they're all out of focus. There we go. There we go. Okay, fewer lights, but we've got much nicer light around Jess's face now. And just for final, I don't know, pimpiness, for final creativity, I guess, we are going to... Oh, Chris wants to see the setup in the corner again, sorry. Hello there, right. Let's tilt it up, there we go. How's that? You can see, there we go, you can see the setup. Right, so what we've got, I was holding the fairy lights here, right in front of the lens. We've got our key light here. We are going to bring in our fill light that we had before, or sorry, our hair light from behind. You'll notice that we do have that little bit. In fact, I'm going to get you to move everything this way a little bit, give me a bit more space. There we go. We do still have a little bit of that warm glow in the background from the light behind. Can you just face where you were? No. There we go, perfect. Right. I can get away with touching my model. She's my other half. Don't touch your models. But if you're photographing your family, it's fine, I think. Depends who it is. Just put myself in a lot of hot water there, didn't I? Right, so we're going to bring this one back in again, just because we can. It's going to give us that backlight on Jess. So let's run a quick little test. We will turn group A off. We'll turn group B on. We're not going to put the key light in or the fairy lights. We just want to see what that backlight looks like. Oh, it's a little bit hot, Dave. Let's turn that down. We only want a sort of subtle feeling of it. I noticed a question a moment ago. Where did I see that question? Dave Amber says, a 50th of a second shutter speed sounds quite low at 85mm. Is that because the R5 has IBIS? Well, it's a combination of the R5's got IBIS. I've also got, obviously, IS in the lens as well. And, more importantly, I'm using flash. So flash is going to freeze any movement. Certainly at that kind of shutter speed, it's very close. Flash is going to freeze any movement that we might have going on. Right, let's try this. Just make sure. There we go, that looks a little bit better. Right, let's turn group A on, and we're going to finish off, hopefully, with a sort of Christmassy themed picture. These lights, incidentally, I think I bought them on Amazon. They were not very expensive, like 6 or 7 quid. And they run off a USB power pack. So there's 2 sets of them wrapped around this. They were really nicely tied up earlier on, and now they're just an absolute mess. It's going to take me about an hour to untidy them or to sort them out. Right, I moved this, didn't I? So let's bring this forwards a little bit so that we get that nice front light on Jess. Just turn slightly towards the light, tiny little bit. There we go, and bring your face back towards me. And I'm going to stand back here, and I'm hoping, there we go, you can all see me. That's good. No one really wants to see me though, do they? You're all here for Jess and Otis. I know. It's fine. And hopefully we have a picture. Look at that. Now we could darken the background down a little bit. I could make my shutter speed a little bit faster if I wanted to, but I quite like that warmth in the background. It still gives it a little bit of feeling, and it's nothing that's overly distracting from the picture. Do you like it? Yes, not so bad, is it? Okay, so we've got a slightly Christmassy themed picture with some fairy lights done in the living room. Now let's have a very quick recap. Jess can sit down, I think. I'll let her sit because obviously she's carrying a baby. So she needs to sit as much as she can. And I'm going to come and talk to you. Oh, where am I going to come and talk to you at? Give me a second. I pulled the cable out earlier on. That was part of the magic of TV. Let's just, there we go. Right, you can look at Jess for a second. And then, hopefully, ta-da! Look at that. Right. Angela, thank you very much. Fabulous, and what a gorgeous model. I couldn't agree more. Yes, she's fabulous, isn't she? Right, so let's have a very quick recap. We started by talking about lens focal length, and hopefully you saw, if you didn't, then feel free to go back and watch this again. You saw that we had a change in the shape of the face when we used a different focal length lens. And also, depending on if we kept the face the same size, but moved back to accommodate the longer focal length lens, the shape of the face changed, but the background also narrowed a little bit. And then when we stayed in the same place, you noticed with the longer focal length lens, it really did narrow in the perspective while still again changing the shape of the face. So think about the focal length you want to use. General guide, as I said before, anything between 50 and 150 is good. Some people will narrow that and say anything between, I don't know, 70 and maybe 135. 135 is a great candid portrait lens. So that was focal length. Then we looked at lighting. We started off with just this overhead light that's above me up here. And you saw how when the light was above, we got shadows under the eyes, the nose and the chin. Simply moving a foot or two forwards or backwards to change whether that light's directly ahead, above, or slightly in front and coming forwards makes a dramatic difference to those shadows on the face. Then we brought in a reflector. That's what we did. We brought in a reflector just to push some light back in. So remember that reflectors open up shadows. That's generally what they do. Okay. Whereas diffusers, if you put a diffuser between your subject and the light source, that softens highlights. That's how I like to think of it. So we put the reflector in, it pushed some light back into Jess's face so that the shadows were softer still. We had an even softer light source across her face. And then we looked at moving her into the chair and we built a light setup just with two lights eventually, plus the light that was in the room. And I used a very simple light modifier, which is this one here. It makes it slightly larger than a flash on its own, but it's not unwieldy and massive like an 80 or a 1.2 meter softbox. And I showed you how to balance with the light that was in the room. So set your exposure as if you're not using flash, get the background looking how you want it to be, then add in your light from the front. Remember, you may or may not need flash exposure compensation. That will be driven by whether your subject is predominantly brighter than a midtone or darker than a midtone, and how you frame will affect the result that you're going to get because it will change how the camera meters the light. So think about that. We then brought in that second light behind, which provided the hair light on the back of Jess's head, which kind of mimicked the warm light that we were coming in, but provided separation. We had separation in colour already because we had that warm light in the background. Then we actually effectively made that light look like it was stronger without blowing the light in the background to provide the hair light on Jess's head. Again, helping to create that feeling of separation, that feeling of more space in a room that actually is not that big. And then finally, I got the fairy lights out. We put the fairy lights up. I'd wrap them around a panel and used them in front of the lens, nice and out of focus, with some fill light so that we could create a kind of a Christmas feeling, warm, cozy, fireside type of picture. Hopefully I answered some questions along the way. I'm just making sure there are no questions I've missed. Karen says, thank you, Jess looks beautiful in any light. Yes, she does. Chris, thank you. No questions. No questions. Brilliant. You've enjoyed it, hopefully. And you've all learned something according to the comments. So thank you very much. I'm going to get Jess to come and stand up here so that you can all say thank you to Jess. Here she is, look, so she can come and stand in front of me. You can maybe stand back a little bit. She's not quite as tall as me. There we go. So thank you, Jess, for being my great model. Bump down here that you can't quite see is due in 6 weeks or so, 5.5, 6 weeks. So I might be offline for a while. I might disappear for a bit, but then get ready for a slew of baby pictures. Aren't you lucky? And no doubt we'll do a baby photography workshop at some point, because why not use the models you've got? Obviously Otis is now asleep down here, fast asleep. Thank you all for joining. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. I hope you've all learned something, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next one that I run. In the meantime, do not forget, Tina Eisen is coming up. And I'm going to say it's the 12th of December, but I might be wrong. But I think I'm not. But I'm sure it's going to be on the Camera World Facebook page already. Tina is going to be doing some incredible beauty Christmassy stuff. She's going to take Christmas and blow it to all out of proportion into an incredible beauty shoot and show you how to do it. So definitely tune in for that one. In the meantime, thanks once again. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Please stay safe and well. And hopefully COVID-free, and get out and shoot or stay in and shoot, whatever you've got. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now.